1989, in Mukherjee, a tiny Japanese village. It is situated on February 28th in what is now known as Fukushima's Tama district. Even though it was almost the end of winter, the village was still completely covered in a thick layer of snow and was extremely chilly. Additionally, there is a 23-year-old lady who I will not name, but who I will refer to as the teacher in this movie. She had to go to her place of employment, the local elementary school, that morning. For her, it was simply another typical day. She had returned after an extended weekend trip to visit family when, at 5 p.m., she wrapped up her work and made her way to the female dorms on the school premises where she resided. She shared a single dormitory room with a little sort of squat bathroom adjacent. She uses the restroom when she returns to her dorm. And that's when things started to get quite strange. She kind of peers down into the toilet bowl before using it, and what she sees is something you wouldn't really expect to see in a toilet. She notices the black leather shower of a man. She is obviously confused in her initial mental process. She believes that someone might be pulling a practical joke on her, or that someone might have attempted to break into our home, or anything similar. She makes the decision to go explore as a result. A squat toilet was a toilet. The ball was thereafter lowered into the earth, and a short U-shaped pipe directly linked the bowl to an externally empty surge tank. She then proceeded outside to the surge tank, where she discovered that its cover was off. She peered inside, and what she saw there caused her to scream, startling other teachers and people who were standing nearby and in the dorms. And the fact that she saw a man's legs in this surge tank made her scream perfectly acceptable. Thus, the toilet surge tank contained an entire man. Her co-workers and the school principal showed up to see what was going on. It became evident that the man was dead when they peered inside and took a closer look at what was going on with him. A co-worker of hers made a police call. When the police arrived, they verified the general consensus that the person within the storage tank had passed away. The exterior pipe of the storage tank was only 36 centimeters wide, so even though they started to try to take off the garments, they were unable to remove him. He simply could not fit through the pipe when they attempted to pull them out. As stated in 2004 by the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry of Japan. In Japan, men between the ages of 25 and 29 have shoulders that are 40.4 centimeters wide on average. It would therefore have been quite an accomplishment for this man to have fit into the pipe, even if he had shoulder widths that were below normal. Additionally, the 20-centimeter wide conduit that connected the supertank from the interior was similar to the squat toilet bowl. He could not have entered that tank from the inside for that reason, and even though it might have been challenging to enter from the outside, given that he was inside, it was evidently feasible. However, there were many unanswered issues about how he entered the building. After all, if the police couldn't even remove his body, how could he have done it? How on earth did he fit it in? Did he tense up physically? Was it someone else who pushed him in there? Unfortunately, because they were simply the local cops, they were rather brutal with his body while they were trying to get it out. It was a tiny village here. Therefore, to put it mildly, they were completely out of their element. They also reasoned that they could be extracted if he managed to get inside. They were truly giving it their all, but they were unable to succeed. Thus, some of the evidence might have been harmed during that procedure, but as I mentioned before, they were only the village's local police. They were completely unprepared for this, too. In the end, they called the Higher Manchester Police Station, which is nearby, for reinforcements. In order to extract the man's corpse from the pipe, 3 firefighters were dispatched along with reinforcements. They used an excavator and a crane to lift the pipe out of the ground and then cut it apart. After they succeeded in freeing him, they discovered the man in a fetal posture inside the pipe. He had no clothing on the top half of his body, his chest was bare, his heart was folded perfectly against his breast, and he wore no shoes. One shoe, located in front of his entire body, was discovered in the tank with him. That's why the teacher noticed that when she peered inside the squat ball, like in front of his head. There was no way he could have removed his coat or shoes while inside the tank due to its limited size. Hence, it's evident that he removed them before entering, which is puzzling because it's possible that he removed his coat because it was too big for him to come inside. But why would he enter the room carrying the coat? Why wouldn't he leave it outside to avoid having excrement all on it? It was just a very strange circumstance. Like, everything about this circumstance seemed just odd. Additionally, he was facing the restrooms in our entrance, namely the one where you would sit on the ball and use the restroom because it was too small for him to turn around. It is thus almost abrupt. He plunged straight into the tank. Authorities had to properly clean him twice after removing him from the pipe due to his obvious feces-covered state, and they reported that the smell was horrible, which is the worst day at work you could possibly imagine going to. And they say something like, "Oh, we found this guy in a toilet pipe, and he's all filthy, so you have to wash him off." I apologize for it. I would simply give up. That's not what I'm doing, I would say. I'm giving up. I was unable to. Even worse, it became apparent that this is a little community as they were cleaning him. Not much transpired regarding the entire incident very rapidly. A group of village residents arrived to witness the authorities unearth the man, remove him from the pipe, and wash every member of the crew off of him. It was also quite a gathering, as you may imagine, as it was a major story in a tiny hamlet. And a large group of people were around to witness the entire process once they had finished stripping this man off. Many of them identified the man as 26-year-old Naoyuki Kanno right away. He was a well-known and well-liked member of the community, holding a prominent position. He would aid the needy people in the village's youth club, where he was an active helper. Everyone in the neighborhood cherished his upbeat disposition and his willingness to always offer assistance. They liked him so much that in high school he was frequently asked to make speeches in front of groups of people and even officiate weddings. He also played guitar for a band and was passionate about writing songs. All in all, he was a very well-liked and well-popular guy. At the time, the nuclear power industry in Japan was experiencing significant growth. Therefore, he worked as a sales director for a business that maintained nuclear power plants. Nayak was gone for 4 days when his body was discovered in the storage tank. Thus, he was last observed leaving the home he shared with his parents on February 24th. Before leaving to go out and drink with several coworkers, he told his father, "I will most likely be away for some time." Then, as he was still a young man, his parents weren't overly concerned when he didn't come home that evening. He would frequently go out drinking with his friends and coworkers and spend the entire evening away from home. They did, however, start to worry. They hadn't heard from him after a few days when he hadn't returned home. Thus, 3 days later, they reported him missing to the police, who then started their hunt. His body was discovered the following day when his automobile was discovered in a farmhouse parking lot close to the elementary school. The fact that the keys were still in the car suggested that he intended to get back there right away. Police had no idea why he would be near the school or what he was doing there, but he wasn't going to be doing whatever it was for very long. There were just too many questions and not enough answers. Of course, his body was discovered the following day. As previously mentioned, there was only one shoe discovered in the tank with him. And not long after his death was discovered, his second shoe was also discovered on a riverbank a few hundred meters from his automobile. Anyway, a medical examiner conducted an autopsy on his body at the nearby fire station once it had been removed and disinfected. Because of the rigor mortis on the body, it was discovered during this autopsy that he had passed away on February 26, 2 days earlier. He was last observed by his parents, leaving the house a few days later. There were no indications of foul play. There were no indications of a struggle. Because of his hypothermia and thoracic circulation condition, his death was declared an accident. In other words, he just froze and was crushed to death. Although he would have received these scratches while attempting to crawl inside the pipe, they did discover minor scrapes on his elbows and knees, suggesting that he had entered the conduit voluntarily. It's crazy that he was able to crawl into that pipe, and no one knows how he did it. Then, after he was inside and trying to come out, he would have been using his elbows and knees and kind of scratching them up in the process. However, he managed to do it in spite of the stench and how repulsive that pipe would have been. Only God knows why. In a moment, we will discuss many theories on why. But my goodness, just when you thought you had it all, this case has also pretty well consumed you. Since there isn't much information available, we will now discuss theories. It follows that there is a great deal of conjecture. The first theory, the peeping Tom theory, was put forth by authorities in light of their investigation's conclusions. As I mentioned earlier, there were no indications of foul play. There were scratches on his knees and elbows, indicating that he had attempted to crawl in there and crawl out again, but had been unsuccessful. This implied that he had entered the room in an attempt to spy on the teacher when she, squatted in an attempt to use the restroom. After that, he simply became stranded there. His body's alignment supports this theory as well. His knees were folded to make room for the squatting bowl, and his head was facing that direction. All it seemed to show was that he went into the tank on purpose to try to peek. But since he was unable to remove his arms from his chest, it appears that he may not have given it enough thought as to how he would escape, and he was unable to move his arms in that manner to free himself. He was simply too big to squeeze himself back out. He became stuck, which explains the scratches on his elbows and knees even more. He would have been frantically scratching and wiggling to try to get out of there as soon as he realized he was stuck and couldn't get out, which is what caused all of these scratches. However, he was unable to get out of the posture he was in when he entered the bathroom. Furthermore, there would have been far more injuries to his body than what the autopsy revealed if he had been forced into such a little conduit, as someone would not be gentle while trying to fit a dead body into a tiny pipe. It's inevitable that they will push and thrust him within, causing crushing and bruising in the process. Furthermore, why would an assailant take the time to carefully fold his coat, put it on, and then bring it inside with him? They would just shoe the coat in with him if they were going to put it in. They won't bother to fold it nicely or take care of anything else. Furthermore, I am at a loss as to how someone may enter a surge pipe in that manner. If peeping is the only possible explanation, then that's extremely awful, and that's what the police came to in the end. Now, though, his parents deny all of these allegations. They were unable to envision their son acting in such a way. I'm sure no parent can fathom their son being so perverse that he fits himself into a storage tank to watch people flush. In fact, Nai's father used the cutout to that end. Sarge piped to carry out the scenario, and he concluded that his kid could not have twisted his body in such a way as to fit into those pipes. He basically said that he couldn't have gotten the knife in there on his own. Naturally, there is a great deal of disagreement on this. Additionally, he had a great reputation in the hamlet and was a very well-liked man, sir. Many villagers didn't think he would act in this way or, sex on gullible women in the community. Since they believed there was no way, almost 4,000 individuals really signed a petition asking the authorities to look into the matter again. Additionally, a large portion of the signers of this petition were locals. He could never have climbed in there on his own, so they assumed foul play had to be involved. All I know is that people can conceal a lot about themselves from those around them, if there is anything I've learned from working on these cases. Individuals aren't really going to publicly display their ugliest traits. It's not like he's cruising the town flaunting his creepiness. For my part, the reason I think this explanation is correct is because of the facts. There are no bruises on his body, no signs that someone forced his body into that space. Furthermore, it appears from the scrapes on his arms and legs that he was trying to escape by crawling inside. And why would someone crawl into a storage tank for any other reason? I simply believe that this is the most plausible theory, There is now a further notion that suggests Nike and the teacher might have had a love relationship. Regretfully, conflicting tales make it difficult to determine the exact nature of their relationship. Some claim they were only acquaintances, while others claim they knew one another extremely well. In any event, we may be certain that they were acquainted with one another. In any case, they were acquaintances. However, It's unclear or unconfirmed if they were anything more, and this notion is essentially pure conjecture. Since the case hasn't been solved, pretty much all of the theories are really simply conjecture. And a theory is just that. It's basically conjecture from folks regarding possible outcomes. In summary, certain publications suggested that there might have been a romantic triangle involving NIU, the instructor, and her boyfriend, or that the teacher was possibly having an extramarital affair with Nike. According to some reports, Nike was genuinely close friends with the teacher's boyfriend, and the two of them succeeded in finding the man who had been contacting the instructor about John Locke's harassment, whatever the nature of their relationship. We know, at the very least, that they were acquainted, so it's plausible that he was aware of her absence from the 24th to the 28th. If, however, he was aware of this knowledge and entered the tank on the day he vanished on February 24th, why would he do so when he knew she would be gone for the next 4 days? No water, no food. It's very cold outside, and in order to enter, he had to remove his coat. It's snowing a lot, like it doesn't make sense at all. Well, he might have been practicing. Perhaps he was aware that she would be gone for 4 days. He then made the decision to practice entering the storage tank in order to observe her, and secondly, to practice exiting in order to ensure that he could do it without her realizing he was there. Do you understand what I mean? Perhaps he was aware that she would be leaving on the 24th, but he was unaware of the duration of her absence. Alternatively, it's possible that he was completely unaware of her absence. Perhaps he was following her, and when he saw her go, he thought, "This is my chance. I'm going to head inside the surge tent and bide my time till she returns." Remember, he left his keys in his car, which suggested that he expected to be back in there pretty soon. He might have assumed that she was just popping out for a quick minute to go get some groceries, go see a friend, talk to a friend, or talk to someone in the dorms. He's also a really smart guy, and none of this seems like a sensible idea. Cramming into a little space with no way out and putting on clothes for someone who might not even show up. Like, it's just really strange, and I'm not sure why. There are a lot of facets to this or possible directions for this hypothesis, you know. For instance, it's possible that when her boyfriend discovered that he was spying on the teacher, he kind of killed him and put him in the Sarah tank. Alternatively, it's possible that he recently learned of their affair. Thus, he murdered him once more and placed him inside the storage tank. In fact, the teacher is blamed for Nike's demise in the following theory. Initially of all, as you may recall, it was nighttime when she found the body and initially noticed the shoe. The toilet has a quite deep pit. Some may ask how, under those circumstances, she could have noticed the shoes. It's so far down, it's dark, and the shoe is black. How could she have looked in there and possibly found it at all? As I previously stated, she had also disappeared for 4 days, from February 24 to February 28th, which is the same period of time that Nike went missing. You know, he vanished on the same day that she departed. This argument, however, expands on the love triangle theory a little bit by suggesting that it's possible they had taken these 4 days off together as a vacation. And either Nike wanted to sort of solidify their relationship and make it public, or the teacher's boyfriend found out and an argument ensued between him and Nike. And because the teacher didn't want it to happen, an altercation started. There are many doubts about why he would remove his shoes, especially when the other shoe was discovered only a few hundred meters distant, and the fact that he was also caught in the tank race barefoot. What would make him remove his shoes? It's snowy and chilly outside. You don't want to be walking barefoot on this type of ground. Perhaps this did suggest a possible foul play. Perhaps there was a battle of some kind, and his shoes came off as a result. For instance, the conflict might have taken place a few hundred meters from his car, back where his other shoe was discovered. Subsequently, he was placed inside the septic tank, along with his coat and other shoes, thus disposing of all the evidence along with him. Or perhaps the altercation took place close to the septic tank. After shoving everything in, they made the decision to take one safe step to confuse everyone even more and give the impression that it was an accident. It's incomprehensible to me why he would remove one shoe from such a distance and then walk to the septic tank wearing only that one shoe. Perhaps he was attempting to hide his footprints by avoiding leaving these two shoe prints. However, that defies logic. Otherwise, why did he carry one shoe and leave the other behind? Perhaps he planned to utilize the entire incident as a pretext. Perhaps he removed the shoes from the area where the second shoe was discovered close to the riverbed. Then he went barefoot to the septic tank and brought one of the shoes with him. He didn't wear them there in order to hide his footprints and avoid leaving traces of his shoes that could be linked to him. He then used the one shoe to sort of fabricate a story, saying things like, "Oh, I dropped my shoe in there," forcing him to go in and get it. I swear, I wasn't climbing into a toilet as a nice shit cover story because I would just pop it with the shirt. However, individuals' brains function in various enigmatic ways. It goes without saying that the majority of these hypotheses are based on gossip, since people always strive to make sense of the unexplainable. Furthermore, the fact that he was discovered in the teacher's septic tank while she was abroad was puzzling. These rumors were further stoked by the fact that she discovered his body. Sincerely, I don't think this notion is valid since, once again, the evidence is what matters most. If someone had actually just jammed his body through that pipe, there would have been much more bruising and crushing of his body, but there was no sign of a struggle. Furthermore, if the teacher and her lover were accountable, they undoubtedly would have disposed of the body more skillfully. By placing it in the teacher's storage tank, they would not be found out. They would have grabbed the body from under their own hands and left the scene. This leads us to the fourth and final theory, which suggests that Nike's work was involved. He worked as a sales director for a company that maintained nuclear power plants, as I previously indicated. Additionally, there was a municipal election scheduled to choose the village chief at the time of his passing. Additionally, there was a great deal of discussion regarding the possible extension of the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the village. Although the village would have benefited economically, there were significant health risks for the villagers should this expansion take place. In fact, Nike and another colleague had previously looked at the Fukushima power facility. Furthermore, this colleague sadly took his own life a month prior to Nike's demise. According to the argument, throughout the course of their research, they might have discovered information that someone wanted kept secret, or they might have enraged someone connected to the Fukushima power plant or the electoral process. And both of their deaths might have been brought on by this individual or this group of individuals they offended. The father of this 90-year-old was actually a strong advocate for the incumbent mayor prior to the election, and he suddenly ceased doing so. There were suspicions that he learned of some dubious activities involving the local authorities and that he was opposed to them. And given that he had been such an outspoken defender of this person, it must have been fairly bad for him to just cut off contact and cease speaking well of this person if he did find anything.